It was a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday that smells like burnt toast and half-truths. I found a single gold earring on the passenger seat of her car, still warm from the afternoon sun, twisted into the fabric like it had clawed its way out of her skin. She doesn't wear gold. Never has. Says it makes her look cheap, though apparently not cheap enough to keep it out of her lap while she was stuck in traffic for an hour. That's how it started, not with moaning walls or lipstick-stained collars, but with that tiny, gleaming parasite coiled into my upholstery like it belonged there. She came home humming that night. Not a real song, just a tuneless, smug little sound that had too much sugar and not enough guilt. I said nothing, just kissed her cheek, listened to the subtle shuffle of her footsteps like a forensics expert listening to a crime scene. She poured herself a glass of wine, told me about her exhausting day at the marketing agency, how the interns were hopeless, how her boss kept piling on more work. I nodded along. Meanwhile, the earring sat in my pocket like a live grenade, quiet, dangerous, begging for a reason to detonate. 3 days later, she started dressing like someone who expected to be undressed by someone else. Tighter jeans, redder lips, perfume in places no one but a lover should be allowed to sniff. She claimed she was reconnecting with herself. I let her. I encouraged her. Hell, I even offered to buy her a new wardrobe. That's when I knew the truth wasn't a question anymore. It was a fact waiting for the right lighting. I wasn't going to confront her. That's what they want. A fight gives them a reason. No. I was going to build her a stage, hand her a microphone, and let her confess to an audience of her own destruction. So I planted a lie. One with roots so deep it made me hate the man I pretended to be. I told her, over soft lighting and takeout sushi, that I had cheated on her 3 years ago. A meaningless fling. No name, no face, just a moment of weakness I'd carried like a disease I was now desperate to be rid of. Her eyes didn't widen. Her jaw didn't tighten. She just blinked twice, looked down at her wine, and nodded. "Thank you for being honest," she said. Not anger. Not tears. Just calm, measured silence, the kind that hides 1,000 wrong decisions waiting to be justified. That night, she didn't sleep beside me. Claimed she needed time. Moved to the guest room like a wounded monarch exiling herself for effect. I knew what she was doing. Building a story. Drafting the script. Gathering emotional currency so she can spend it recklessly. By morning, she was back to smiling. But it was a different smile, like a chess player who just sacrificed a pawn and was waiting for you to notice your queen was trapped. Then came the next act. She brought up Brian. One of my oldest friends, the kind of guy who drinks too fast, laughs too loud, and has a mouthful of teeth that women mistake for charm. She asked if we were still close. I played it cool. Haven't seen him in a while, I lied. The trap was already baited. Brian wasn't just in on it, he was the centerpiece. An actor, a wire-wearing devil with a grin made for betrayal. I told him everything. Gave him the script. Flirt with her, I said. Make it easy. Let her come to you. He laughed. Said he always knew she was a snake waiting for grass. 2 weeks passed. She accidentally left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. My hands didn't even shake as I opened it. There he was, Brian, now saved as B. Cute. Discreet. Their chat was a graveyard of moaning emojis and not-so-subtle plans to hang out while I'm at yoga. She said things like, "He deserves it," and "I want to feel powerful again." He told her he'd always wondered what she tasted like. She sent a winking gif. That's when I knew. She wasn't doing it to get even. She was doing it because she'd been waiting for permission. I didn't confront her. I gave her space. Told her I was proud of her for processing the betrayal so maturely. Even made her breakfast. French toast, berries, fresh squeezed orange juice. She kissed me on the cheek like a widow laying flowers on a grave. Brian kept the act going, right on schedule. He booked a hotel room. Gave her a time. She agreed, said she was ready to reclaim her power. I watched the text come in while she sat next to me, pretending to read a book. I smiled. She smiled back. I almost laughed. She didn't know the cameras were already set up. She didn't know her entire descent into revenge was going to be recorded, archived, and used as a mirror to show her the monster she'd become. She thought she was about to make me feel the way I had supposedly made her feel. But I wasn't hurt. I was hunting. And I had just lured the prey into its own trap, with breadcrumbs made of lies and bait made of ego. We looked like a postcard. Clean kitchen, shared Spotify playlists, weekend brunches with her friends who smiled too wide and drank too much Prosecco. She had that warm laugh, the one that bubbled up in the back of her throat and made you think everything was exactly as it should be. I trusted her with the kind of blind faith that makes a man dangerous when it finally breaks. She talked about starting a garden, a home renovation project, maybe even a second honeymoon to Bali. I nodded. I agreed. I offered ideas. But something was wrong with the way she said we. It wasn't the inclusive we anymore. It was the corporate we, like a PR rep pretending a scandal hadn't already erupted. I told myself she was just stressed. Maybe work was taking a toll. Maybe she needed something new to get excited about. And she did get excited, just not about me. First came the therapy sessions. Once a week turned into 3. No discussion, just a text letting me know she needed the space to process without feeling watched. Then she started journaling. Not the cute kind with hearts in the margins, but thick leather-bound things she kept locked in her nightstand. She called it shadow work. Said she was uncovering the deep truths about herself. I didn't ask questions. I respected the journey. But something about the way she spoke changed, like every conversation was a TED Talk she was rehearsing. Her voice got lighter, more measured, less reactive. Like I was a character she was trying not to break the fourth wall with. She started using phrases like, I need to protect my energy, and I don't feel seen in this dynamic. She said we needed boundaries. That intimacy wasn't just physical, it was about mutual resonance. I didn't even know what that meant. All I knew was that she stopped reaching for my hand when we watched movies and started locking her phone face down, like she was expecting the devil to text her. Her phone, always near her, always silent. The kind of silence that isn't peace but strategy. One night, I noticed her notifications were turned off completely. I made a joke about it. She didn't laugh. Said she was trying to limit her distractions. That same week, she changed her Instagram to private. Not a word. Just a locked profile and a polite wall where our shared memories used to be displayed. Her feed used to be full of us. Photos from our trip to Prague, candid shots of our Sunday pancakes, her hand in mine on some random hiking trail. Now it was all wellness quotes and vague captions about self-worth. She stopped tagging me in anything. When I brought it up, she said she was cultivating an individual presence. And I smiled like an idiot, told her I admired her growth, all while something inside me was rotting slow and quiet. Then came the purchases. A new yoga mat, designer bags, expensive skincare routines she never explained. I asked about the charges, not accusing, just curious. She got cold. Said I was being controlling. That financial independence was part of her unfolding. So I backed off. Because that's what good husbands do, right? We support. We listen. We trust. Even when that trust is holding hands with a loaded gun. One night, I went to grab something from her car. She asked me to get her charger. Simple. Routine. Nothing out of the ordinary. But in the back seat, under a half-zip tote bag, was a box of lingerie, tags still on. Not the kind she ever wore for me. I froze. I stared at it like it was evidence in a crime I hadn't realized I was living in. Lace. Crimson. Matching. A set designed to be removed by eager hands. But I said nothing. Just grabbed the charger, handed it to her, and kissed her forehead. She smiled. But it was hollow, like her face had been trained to curve the right way without meaning it. Later, I laid awake beside her, listening to the way her breath no longer synced with mine. She dreamed alone now. She turned away from me in her sleep. Once, I placed my hand on her hip just to feel connected. She flinched. Said I startled her. Apologized and rolled over. The next morning, she made coffee and talked about going on a retreat, alone. Some women's empowerment thing in the mountains. I nodded. Asked how long she'd be gone. She didn't answer. Just said, as long as I need to be. And that's when I felt it. Not a break. Not yet. But a thin, spiderweb crack slicing straight through the illusion of our perfect life. Like the kind of fissure you only notice when the light hits it just right. I smiled. I kissed her goodbye as she left for work. Then I went into the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, and said, it's already over. She just doesn't know I know. It was a Saturday morning, the kind of overcast, silent morning that feels like the world is holding its breath before something ugly happens. She was out, running errands, which lately had become a euphemism for vanishing for hours without so much as a receipt to prove she existed. I was folding laundry, something mindless to keep my hands moving while my thoughts wove nooses, and her tablet pinged on the kitchen counter. I never touched her devices. Not out of respect, but because I knew they were curated illusions. Still, the screen lit up, and for the first time, it didn't hide. No passcode. No facial recognition. Just an open window into the kind of betrayal that doesn't scream, it whispers. The notification said, can't stop thinking about last night. You're addictive. No name. Just a number. But that was enough. Enough to calcify every soft, lingering doubt into something sharp and weaponized. I picked it up. My fingers didn't shake. I was calm, unnaturally so, like my body had shut down all unnecessary systems and gone full predator. I opened the chat. Dozens of messages. Videos. Voice notes. Pictures of her nude, laughing, posed like she was auditioning for a pornographic memoir. But it wasn't just the visuals that gutted me. It was the words. The language she used. Pet names I thought were ours. Inside jokes she'd recycled like garbage. The things she used to say to me about feeling alive and wanting to be worshipped now served cold to someone else, a faceless man who texted like he was renting a body he didn't respect. And then I saw it. A message that wasn't meant for him. It was meant for someone else. He still has no idea. I could probably convince him to pay for our trip too. He's so gullible when he's in love. That was the moment. Not the nudes. Not the "I missed your tongue" voice note she left at 2:47 a.m. It was that message. That one. The one where I became a joke in a script I didn't know I was starring in. My hands went still. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at that glowing rectangle of treason, and something inside me shut off, quietly, like a light switch flipped in a church basement. She thought I was stupid. She thought my love made me blind. But love doesn't blind a man. It builds his patience. And patience is the most dangerous thing to give someone who's planning your funeral in slow motion. I put the tablet down exactly where I found it, like I'd never touched it. I folded the last shirt. I made myself coffee. I sat on the couch, took a sip, and watched the steam rise like smoke from a future house fire. That was when I realized I wasn't suspicious anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I was strategic. Because now I had what I needed. Not just proof. Proof was for cowards who wanted closure. What I had was leverage. I had the full map. I saw her exact capacity for deceit. And that meant I could now predict her every move before she made it. She was no longer unpredictable. She was a puzzle I had finished before she even noticed the box was missing. When she came home later, fake smiling and humming some tune she thought made her sound innocent, I kissed her cheek. She asked how my day was. I said, productive. And it was. I just witnessed the precise moment a man becomes something else, not broken, not heartless, but free. Free from illusion. Free from the rusted chain of trust I'd been dragging like a fool. And now that I had nothing left to believe in, I could finally do what needed to be done. Clean. Sharp. Surgical. Not for justice. Not even for revenge. Just for balance. Because if she thought I'd go down quietly, she hadn't been listening all these years. I was never the man who lost. I was just the man who waited. She had no idea she was being watched. That was her first mistake. She thought I'd stay in the emotional fog she built for me, lost, confused, too heartbroken to see clearly. But I saw everything. Not just what was in front of me, but the patterns, the gaps, the deliberate absences that smelled like guilt dressed in lavender perfume. I started small. I told her I'd be home late on a Thursday. She smiled too quickly, didn't ask why. That was the first confirmation, relief disguised as indifference. I parked 2 blocks away and waited. Her car didn't move. But the lights in our bedroom turned on at 7:43 p.m., then off at 8:10, then on again at 8:52. I watched from the shadows, counting the minutes like a prison guard waiting for a shift change. She wasn't alone. The next day, I asked about her night. She said she read a book and fell asleep early. I nodded, handed her coffee, kissed her on the forehead, and marked another lie on the growing list that would one day be carved into her reputation like a tombstone. I checked our joint bank account. Nothing obvious. She wasn't stupid enough to use a shared card for her rendezvous. But she'd grown sloppy with her Venmo, $48.50 to someone named Eli, every other Friday. I clicked through. Massage session, the note read. But the same Eli also got $120 the night I said I'd be working late. I found his business. A personal trainer. Private sessions only. No online reviews, no photos, just a contact number and an address that mapped to a rented room in a building known more for its hourly accommodations than fitness. I called, pretending to be a new client. Male sessions weren't his focus, he said. Only women. Mostly referrals. Discreet environment. I thanked him, hung up, and smiled. I now had a name. Next, I spoke to her best friend, Sophie. Harmless, ditzy, always just a little too drunk. I invited her out for lunch. Told her I was planning a surprise trip for my wife and needed help picking a destination. She gushed. Told me how happy she was we were reconnecting. And then she slipped. Said she was so glad my wife had someone she could talk to about everything. I asked what she meant. She blinked, laughed, covered it up. But the damage was done. Sophie knew. Probably had been the cover story more than once. I checked her Instagram the next day, saw a picture of her and my wife at a cafe 2 weekends ago. Same weekend my wife claimed she was out of town for a silent retreat. I traced the photo's GPS tag. It was in the city, 6 miles from our house. Another lie. I sent Sophie a bouquet of flowers the following week with a thank you note for helping me plan the perfect surprise. Psychological pressure, slow and subtle. I watched her crumble from a distance, posting less, drinking more, guilt eating her through the lens of every filtered selfie. Then I planted questions. Casual, innocent, perfectly placed landmines in our everyday conversations. How was Eli's last massage? I asked one night, eyes on the TV. She paused, said she didn't know who that was. I nodded, smiled, changed the subject. Another night, I asked if Sophie ever talked about her exes. She said Sophie never mentioned past relationships. I mentioned the guy I saw her with last week, just to see if she'd blink. She did. Said Sophie was just reconnecting with old friends. I didn't ask how she knew. I didn't need to. Her lies were no longer for deception, they were for survival. I hacked her GPS without touching her phone. Synced it through our shared car app account, the one she'd forgotten about. Set alerts. Watched her workout trips lead to an upscale apartment building in the downtown core. Different unit numbers, but the same building. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Always after 6 p.m. She was rotating through lovers like a bored queen in a palace of willing peasants. And I said nothing. I kept the charade alive. I told her she looked radiant. I encouraged her to keep exploring her truth. I was playing the fool while building the gallows. Every conversation was recorded. Every lie was timestamped. I even installed a keylogger on the home computer, disguised as a system update. It captured everything. Emails to friends bragging about her new freedom, half-drafted messages to Eli about eventually leaving me, and even a curious little spreadsheet she was using to budget a potential solo move. She thought she was planning an escape. What she didn't realize was that she was digging her own grave, one Google Doc at a time. I had evidence, motive, timeline, characters, dialogue. I wasn't documenting betrayal anymore. I was composing a finale. And she? She was still smiling at me like I was the man she married, oblivious to the fact that the man who married her no longer existed. He had died quietly, buried beneath the weight of her deception. What stood in his place now was something colder, smarter, focused. I was no longer the husband. I was the ghost she'd summoned by mistake. It was a company holiday party, her company, not mine, and the ballroom shimmered with fairy lights and false laughter, the kind of setting where appearances were currency and reputation was everything. She had spent weeks planning the event, down to the floral arrangements and the custom cocktail menu named after the executives. I offered to help, of course, the supportive husband with a camera in hand and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. She wore red, deep, wine-colored, slit at the side, and when she descended the hotel staircase, she looked like temptation designed in a lab. She didn't know that by the end of the night, everyone in that room would know exactly who she really was. I watched her work the room like a seasoned actress, kissing cheeks, laughing too loud, pretending her life was clean and curated. I let it play out. Let her win the illusion for just a little longer. Then, during the executive toast, I stepped onto the small stage. Before the next round of drinks, I said calmly, smiling as I held up my phone, I want to share a little video my wife accidentally left open on our shared cloud. The room froze. Her face went white. I didn't need to yell. I just turned the phone and hit play footage from the bedroom, her voice in moans, her body bent for another man. Clear. Undeniable. Timestamped. Her company logo visible in the mirror behind them. Gasps cut through the room like gunshots. She started walking toward me, voice trembling. It's not what you think, she said, her smile frozen in terror, mascara already beginning to crack. We were just talking, it got out of hand. I didn't mean, but I held up a hand, and she stopped. You talked with your body, repeatedly, in hotels, in cars, in our house while I was at work. You talked a lot. She tried again, louder now, angrier. You ignored me. You haven't looked at me in months. You were always distant. What did you expect me to do? I walked down the steps slowly, each footstep echoing through the thick silence. I expected you to speak, not perform. I expected you to be loyal, not opportunistic. Her lip trembled, but then she snapped upright, her voice sharp, cutting. You're not a saint. You're just boring. I needed more. I wanted to feel something again. And he gave that to me. She said it like a confession and a dare all in one. I nodded, pocketed the phone, stepped closer, close enough to smell the panic beginning to rise beneath her perfume. He gave you a few hours of his time. I gave you years of mine. And you traded it for a man who sends the same videos to 3 other women. I met one. Her name is Chloe. She was 23, scared, and just realized she's pregnant. Her face fell, color draining like a sinkhole opening beneath her heels. You're lying. Her voice cracked, almost childlike. He wouldn't. He did, I said. And he told me you weren't even his favorite. Just the most eager. Her mouth opened, closed. She looked around the room, at the faces that once adored her now turned away in disgust or morbid curiosity. You planned this, she whispered, voice finally soft. You set me up. No, I said. You set us up. I just built the mirror and made sure you saw it in high definition. She stepped back, heels trembling. Her breath was quick now, shallow, eyes darting like a cornered animal. You're humiliating me, she said. In front of everyone. No, I corrected. You did that all on your own. I just gave the truth a spotlight. Her boss stood frozen behind her, phone in hand, eyes narrowed. A few coworkers whispered. One woman gasped when she realized the moans from the video were recorded in the same hotel where the party was being held. She looked around, desperate now, the confidence draining, the mockery gone. Can we talk about this? Please. Just you and me. Not here. Why? I asked. You didn't need privacy when you were spreading your legs for strangers. You don't get it now. And still I didn't yell. My voice stayed level, composed, deliberate. I wanted her to feel the quiet more than the storm. Because the storm ends. But silence. Silence lingers. She tried to grab my hand. I pulled it away. She whispered my name like it was her last lifeline. I didn't respond. I just stood there, watching her unravel thread by thread while the music kept playing in the background, a hauntingly upbeat jazz tune that didn't belong to the moment. The room was silent, not because of the song, but because everyone was watching a woman drown in her own reflection. She opened her mouth again, but I turned before she could speak. I didn't walk away. Not yet. I just stood with my back to her, letting the tension wrap around us like smoke, thick and clinging, until she finally understood. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of her reckoning. She followed me out of the ballroom like a storm dragging broken glass behind it, heels clacking against marble floors, her voice already cracked and venomous. You humiliated me in front of everyone, she hissed, grabbing my arm like she still had the right to hold anything sacred. I looked at her hand, then at her. She let go. You smothered me, she barked, arms flailing now, mascara smudged into war paint. You were always there, always watching, breathing down my neck like a ghost. What did you think would happen? I didn't respond, just kept walking. She circled in front of me like a trapped animal, desperate to corner the silence. Say something, she shouted. Defend yourself. Or is the big, strong man only capable of hiding behind screens and secrets? I met her gaze for one slow, breathless second. I don't defend myself against things I never did, I said, voice low, calm, slicing. You weren't smothered. You were seen. That's what terrified you. Her mouth opened, then slammed shut. She tried a different angle. You were boring. You think just being there is enough? You never surprised me. You never made me feel anything. I tilted my head. And yet you stayed. So either you're a liar or a coward. Which is it? Her lip curled. Don't play the victim here. You're not innocent. No one's innocent in a marriage. I shrugged. No, but I stayed faithful. And apparently, that makes me the fool. She threw her hands up, laughter exploding from her throat, sharp, bitter, unraveling. You act like you're this calm, collected mastermind, but you're just a passive-aggressive control freak who finally snapped. Admit it. You planned this whole thing to feel powerful. You wanted to hurt me. I nodded slowly. No, I wanted the truth. The pain was just a bonus. That one landed hard. She stepped back like I'd slapped her, eyes flicking to the sides like someone looking for exits. You're disgusting, she spat. Colder than I thought. No wonder I needed someone else. You were never a man. Just a statue I dressed up and dragged around to look stable. I stepped closer. You think I'm cold? This, right now, is the warmest you'll ever feel from me again. Her breath caught, just for a second. And that second was everything. She was losing altitude, flailing for ground she no longer owned. "This is emotional abuse," she declared suddenly, grasping for a label, a weapon, anything. "What you did tonight, that was calculated cruelty. You humiliated me." I looked at her like she was a stranger auditioning for a role she'd already lost. "You're not embarrassed because you were exposed. You're embarrassed because you were exposed by me." She blinked. That was it, one tiny twitch of the eye that told me she knew I'd nailed it. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She was just cornered. "You think this makes you better than me?" she snapped, shifting again, faster now, desperate. "You think being quiet and sneaky makes you morally superior? You're pathetic." I raised an eyebrow. "No, but it makes me clean." She laughed again, more out of nerves than confidence. "So what now? You just leave? You think this is over?" I said nothing. My silence was a mirror, and she was starting to see what she looked like in it. "You can't just walk away like some goddamn action hero. This is your marriage too," she screamed. I finally spoke. "Not anymore. You buried it under strangers and excuses." She grabbed my sleeve, clinging now, eyes red and wide. "You think this is easy for me? You think I don't regret it?" I pulled my arm free, slow and precise. "You regret being caught. That's different." Her shoulders sagged. For a second, just one flicker of time, she looked like she might collapse under the weight of her own mess. But then the venom returned, a last desperate swing. "You'll never find someone who loves you like I did." I smiled faintly. Good. That broke her. She stood there, trembling, chest heaving, fury melting into something pitiful and broken. And I felt nothing. No hate. No heat. Just distance. Like I was watching a building burn that I'd already emptied. Every insult she threw, every bitter truth twisted into accusation. It all bounced off the walls of a man who no longer had anything left to lose. That was the part that scared her. Not my silence. Not my planning. But the simple fact that I didn't care anymore. Her voice was a weapon that no longer worked. And for the first time, she realized. She wasn't in control. I was. And I wasn't angry. I was done. She thought the silence meant I was done. That the confrontation at the hotel was the end. The explosion. The final scene before the credits rolled. What she didn't realize was that it was only the prologue. While she scrambled to save face, to twist the narrative into one of temporary weakness or emotional neglect, I was already several moves ahead, drawing lines, collecting receipts, setting every domino in place. I started with the bank accounts. Quietly, without a word, I separated our finances. I had already opened a private account 6 weeks earlier, anticipating this day. I transferred my direct deposits, rerouted any automatic payments, and left her half with just enough to keep her from noticing, just enough to maintain the illusion that nothing had changed. Then I moved on to the car. It was in my name. She liked to flaunt it like it was hers, post pictures with the caption, "My baby," but the title was tucked away in my desk drawer. I disabled her key fob remotely, ordered a tow truck, and had it taken to a secure lot I'd prearranged with my insurance. When she called asking why her car wouldn't start, I didn't answer. I let her ask the silence. At work, I scheduled half-days, claimed I was dealing with family issues. I wasn't lying. I was ending a bloodless war. I went through our documents. Marriage license, insurance policies, joint credit cards, every detail, every account, every legal tie between us. I printed what I needed, filed what mattered, shredded the rest. I met with a divorce attorney I'd researched for weeks. I presented the evidence, time-stamped videos, GPS logs, financial discrepancies, messages saved to both hard drive and cloud. The attorney didn't speak for a full minute. When she finally did, she said I had a slam dunk. Custody wasn't on the table. We had no kids, but the house, the savings, the reputation, that was mine now. I filed the papers. Not served yet. Timing mattered. I needed everything to land at once. While she was still gathering her excuses, I was gathering witnesses. Her parents were first. I invited them to dinner. I was polite, respectful, warm. I showed them what she'd done, not with anger, not to win them over, but because they deserved to know what their daughter had become. Her father didn't speak for 10 minutes. Her mother cried. I left them with a folder full of evidence. I didn't demand they take sides. I knew they would. Then came her boss. I knew where to hit. Not with scandal, not with drama, but with data. I compiled a report, using screenshots from her flirty messages sent during work hours, photos from hotel stays while she was on site at meetings, details that suggested she'd been billing for hours she never worked. I didn't send it anonymously. I scheduled a meeting with HR, presented it like a concerned spouse trying to do the right thing. No theatrics. Just facts. Cold and unforgiving. I left the building with a nod from the HR rep and a promise they'd review things immediately. By the end of the week, she was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. She texted me that night, asking if I knew anything about it. I didn't reply. Instead, I contacted our landlord. Lease was in both our names, but I had already submitted notice. I'd be moving out at the end of the month. She didn't know yet, but I had arranged for movers, a storage unit, even a temporary apartment. Fully furnished. Short lease. Paid in advance. Utilities transferred. Mail redirected. While she thought we were still navigating the fallout, I was already erasing myself from her life. I blocked her from my credit card. Cut her access from streaming services, phone plan, gym membership, anything I paid for. Her digital life dimmed, one login at a time. She sent emails passive-aggressive, then pleading. I archived them all. Responded to none. I notified mutual friends. Just a few. The right ones. The ones who would quietly disseminate the truth without embellishment. I gave them screenshots. Timestamps. Her own words. I didn't need to add commentary. I let her hang herself with her own rope. Within days, invites dried up. Her group chat slowed. Friends stopped replying. The slow social exile began, not because I asked for it, but because no one wanted to catch what she was infected with. Betrayal leaves a scent, and people can smell it. She still had no idea what was coming. She thought there was time for reconciliation for repair. She told a friend she was giving it a week before approaching me. I smiled when I read that message. A week later, the server handed her the divorce papers at brunch, outdoor patio, full crowd, sun shining. She was laughing at the time, talking about healing to someone across the table. Then she opened the envelope, and the color drained from her face. Every step had landed, every move executed. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't broken a single thing. But I dismantled her world with the same calm precision she mistook for weakness. And now she was standing in the ruins, surrounded by strangers, holding the evidence of her undoing in her trembling hands. It happened at her sister's engagement party, a perfect stage she'd helped plan down to the napkin folds, thinking it would be her redemption arc, a chance to charm the people she'd disappointed with fake smiles and recycled charm. She walked in like nothing had happened, wearing white like she was auditioning for purity, arm looped through her father's, greeting cousins she hadn't spoken to in months as if betrayal wasn't hanging around her like smoke. I arrived 10 minutes later, uninvited but expected. Her parents had already seen the truth, the screenshots, the footage, the timeline that made it clear this wasn't a mistake but a lifestyle. Still, they hadn't told her. They left that to me. So I sat quietly at the back of the room while laughter flowed and champagne flutes clinked, watching her flit from table to table, checking her reflection in every mirror like she was convincing herself she still existed. Her lover wasn't with her. Eli had dropped her cold the moment he saw his name on HR's radar, blocked her number, deleted every trace. She tried to reach out, desperate and panicked, but she was already radioactive. Even the women who once defended her stopped replying. The friend who used to cover for her, Sophie, sat beside me now. Said nothing. Just passed me her wine glass with a tight, silent nod. The moment came when her sister tapped the glass, asking for a toast, thanking everyone who helped put it together. She smiled as she stood beside her, arm around her shoulders, ready to steal the spotlight. Then her sister looked at me. Actually, there's one more thing, she said, voice sweet but shaking just enough to split the air. Before we raise a glass, someone else deserves some recognition. All eyes turned. I stood, slowly, deliberately. She saw me, smiled, then paused. Something in her face flickered. She knew. Somehow, without a word, she knew. I walked to the front, handed her sister a flash drive. Would you do the honors? I asked. She plugged it into the projector. No one breathed. The first image appeared, my wife, in our bed, straddling a stranger. Time-stamped. High resolution. Her voice clear as day. You're so much better than him. A collective gasp swept the room. The next image was a message. He doesn't suspect a thing. He's too obsessed with being a good husband to notice. More pictures. More audio. GPS logs. Hotel check-ins. Screenshots of her flirting on work hours. Everything. One after another. Her face went stiff, then cracked, twitching at the corners like she wanted to laugh, but her body wouldn't let her lie anymore. "This is insane," she said finally, her voice too high, too bright. "It's fake. It's all fake. He's trying to destroy me because I wanted space." Silence. Her sister stepped away from her. Her mother turned and walked out. Her father looked down at the floor and whispered, "You're not the woman I raised." She spun to me, teeth bared. "You think this makes you strong? You think everyone here is going to cheer for you now? You're just a coward who couldn't satisfy his wife and needed to play spy games to feel like a man." I said nothing. Just looked at her, steady, silent. She turned to the room, voice cracking. "You all knew? You all just stood there while he planned this? This is abuse. He's manipulating you. This isn't justice, it's revenge." No one moved. The silence was suffocating. A distant cousin shifted in his seat, but even he didn't speak. She took a step back, then another, as if trying to physically retreat from the truth closing in around her. Her makeup began to run, streaks trailing down cheeks that once smiled at lies. "This isn't who I am," she said, voice softer now, trembling. "I was hurting. I didn't mean to." "You meant every second," I said, the only words I gave her. They landed like a bullet. She collapsed into a chair, eyes wild, hands trembling, reaching for something, anything to hold on to. But there was nothing. No lover to message. No friend to cover. No family to lean on. Just the weight of everything she'd buried now dug up in front of the people who once loved her. And I stood there, unmoved. I didn't leave. I didn't storm out in self-righteous fury. I just watched, calm, collected, the quiet center of the hurricane she'd built with her own hands. She looked at me like a drowning woman begging for air. But I wasn't her lifeline. I was the surface. And I didn't move. "You don't get to do this," she screamed, her voice slicing through the crowd like a siren about to crash. "You don't get to parade your self-pity in front of my family like you're some kind of victim." Her voice cracked, desperate, raw, but no one moved to back her up. Her mother stood frozen, arms folded so tightly it looked like she was holding herself together with force alone. Her father, stone-faced, stared down at the floor as if trying to disappear into it. My brother stood beside me, jaw tight, eyes locked on her like he was daring her to say one more lie. The room was full, extended family, friends, even one of her coworkers from HR who had probably come expecting cake and now looked like he'd swallowed glass. And still, she kept going. "You're acting like I ruined your life, but you were never even present in it. You sat in silence while I begged for connection. You think playing the martyr makes you noble? No. It makes you pathetic." She was crying now, but no one reached for her. No one offered comfort. "You're the reason this happened. You. Your coldness. Your obsession with being perfect. I needed something real." I stepped forward then, the words already burning my throat, too sharp to hold back. "You wanted real? You had real. You had loyalty. You had a man who showed up every day, who gave you stability, who trusted you even when the evidence was screaming in his face. And you repaid that by crawling into bed with strangers, moaning your betrayal into hotel pillows while texting me goodnight." A hush dropped like a bomb. Someone in the back gasped. Someone else whispered, "Oh my God." She blinked hard, shaking her head like it could erase what I just said. "It wasn't like that. You don't understand. You never listened." "No," I shot back, stepping even closer, voice rising but not shaking. "I listened. I listened when you said you needed space. I listened when you said you were finding yourself. I listened while you lied, while you cheated, while you made me believe that our failure was my fault. But I wasn't the failure. You were. You threw away something people pray for. And you did it for what? For flings with gym trainers and sad little compliments from men who saw you as an easy lay." "Shut up," she screamed, voice breaking. "You're just trying to destroy me." She turned to the room, arms flailing. "Are you all just going to stand there? He's attacking me. He's turning you against me. He planned this." "We didn't have to," her mother said softly. "You did it yourself." Her knees buckled a little. Her mouth opened, then closed. I could see her scanning the room, looking for someone, anyone, to defend her. Sophie stood behind my brother, now silent. Her boss, red-faced, looked like he wanted to vanish. "Even if I did make mistakes," she spat, "you had no right to humiliate me like this. You could have ended it quietly." "Quietly?" I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You planned months of deceit and expected me to give you a gentle ending? No. You chose chaos. I just made sure you had an audience for the performance." She looked like she was going to explode. "You're disgusting. You think you're strong? You're a coward hiding behind screenshots and rehearsed speeches. You couldn't satisfy me emotionally or physically, And instead of fixing it, you waited, like a snake, so you could drag me through the mud. You dragged yourself, I said, and my voice dropped into something cold, final. All I did was hold up a mirror. You hate me for showing the truth, because you hate the person you really are. She slapped me then. Not hard. Not cinematic. Just a pathetic swing from someone who had finally realized she had nothing left but rage. My cheek stung, but I didn't flinch. That's the last thing you'll ever take from me, I said. My brother stepped forward, just in case she tried again, but she didn't. Her shoulders dropped. Her chest heaved. She looked around the room one more time and found only judgment. Her best friend turned her back. Her father shook his head. Even her coworker slipped out the door like he couldn't bear to be associated with the fallout. You ruined me, she whispered. No, I replied, stepping away. You did that the moment you stopped respecting yourself. And with that, I walked out. Not triumphant. Not victorious. Just done. Behind me, the silence was suffocating. She stood there, surrounded by people who once saw her as a wife, a daughter, a friend. Now they only saw the wreckage. And I let her sit in it. I didn't offer a lifeline. I didn't look back. I gave her what she gave me. Nothing. And for the first time in her life, she understood exactly what that felt like. She fell fast, and she fell alone. Within 3 weeks of that final confrontation, her job was gone, terminated under the soft veil of misconduct, after her private messages circulated quietly among HR staff and clients. Turns out, using company resources to coordinate hotel meetups during business hours wasn't just immoral, it was professionally suicidal. Her name, once spoken with admiration in team meetings, now only surfaced in whispers and inside jokes, always followed by a smirk or a head shake. She tried applying elsewhere, but the digital footprint of her downfall followed like a shadow. LinkedIn grew quiet. Recruiters stopped responding. Even the industry events she used to host now politely uninvited her. Her social life died even faster. Friends who once posted selfies with her at brunch blocked her across every platform without a word. Her girls' group chat went silent, then disappeared entirely. One of them told me, off the record, that they always suspected something was wrong. She was too proud of being secretive, she said. The gym banned her after a very public confrontation with another client. One of Eli's other conquests ended with screaming in the parking lot and security being called. Eli, of course, had vanished the moment his name got tangled up in HR's crosshairs. Blocked her number, wiped his social media, ghosted so completely it was like he never existed. Rumors said he moved states. Others claimed he checked into rehab to save face. Either way, he was gone, and he took with him the last illusion she had of being wanted. Her parents, once her most vocal defenders, stopped taking her calls. Her mother refused to let her into the house after she showed up sobbing at 2 a.m., mascara streaked down her face, begging for one more chance. Her father sent her a single text, "You lied to us all. Don't come back here until you learn how to be honest." Her sister, the one whose engagement party had become the stage for her downfall, never spoke to her again. She moved out of the city soon after. Too many familiar streets, too many silent stairs. Found a basement apartment in a smaller town where no one asked questions and started working at a discount clothing store under a fake name on her employee tag. Her days were filled with folding clearance racks and pretending not to see the looks she got from customers who recognized her face from a video they watched in stunned silence. Then came the messages. First, the texts, soft at first, full of fake strength and self-help language. "I'm growing," she said. "I've changed. I'm learning how to love myself again." I didn't reply. Then they turned emotional. "I miss your voice. I miss our mornings. I still love you." I read every one, then archived them. One day, she wrote, "Please, just one phone call. I need to hear your voice. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just for a second of who we were." I sent one reply. "Strange. I don't even remember your name anymore." A week later, she showed up at my doorstep. She looked smaller somehow, like shame had shaved inches off her spine. No makeup, hair tied back, eyes swollen. She held a stack of letters in her hands. "I wrote everything down," she whispered. "Everything I never told you. Everything I never told myself. Please just read it. Please." I didn't take them. I didn't even look at her hands. I looked her in the eye and said, "I already know the story. And it doesn't end with me saving you." She broke then, right there, on the porch where she once kissed me goodnight, with lies still drying on her lips. She sank to her knees, sobbing, choking on the same pride she once used as a weapon. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood there and watched a stranger grieve the version of herself that no longer existed. And when she finally looked up at me, eyes full of something between hope and hell, I gave her the final line she'd never forget. This is the part where you walk away, and no one follows. Thanks for listening to the full story. I'm curious, where are you from? And did you enjoy the ride?